Hey, glad you made it. Seriously, it means a lot that you're here. And if you feel like tapping that subscribe button, you'd honestly make my whole week. Now, let's get into it. Rain hammered the roof like war drums, rattling the glass. But inside our house, it was the suffocating quiet that made my skin crawl. I had just gotten back to Boise, sooner than expected. The seminar had wrapped up a day early. On the drive home, I stopped to grab her go-to bottle of Merlot and a delicate little crystal pendant she once lingered on in that boutique downtown. I couldn't help smiling, picturing her surprised face. That grin disappeared the moment I crossed the threshold. The front door? Not just unlocked, hanging wide open. Odd. My boots clicked against the hardwood, no welcome home, just a sound I hadn't heard in what felt like forever. Her laugh. It floated through the air, flirty and playful, not the kind she gave me anymore. Then a man spoke, low, intimate, much too familiar. I edged toward the living room, wine in one hand, my other hand starting to shake. There she was. Alyssa, my wife of 4 years. Nestled on the couch, blouse casually parted, exposing skin I once thought only I was allowed to see. And next to her, Damien, my ex-best friend, the one who ghosted everyone and vanished to Miami after graduation. His hand was resting on her hip like he'd never left. I don't even remember dropping the bottle, but the crash echoed like a gunshot. They both jerked up. Alyssa's face drained, then flushed with heat. "Travis," she started, but I wasn't there to listen. I charged. My fist collided with Damien's jaw, knocking him into a table that splintered on impact. A lamp tumbled and rolled away. Alyssa screamed, not in fear for me, but for him. "Don't touch him, you idiot! He's the love of my life!" Time ground to a crawl. My ears rang. She didn't run to me. She didn't try to explain. Instead, she dropped beside him, cupped his face gently, whispered his name like a secret. Then she looked at me, cold and resolute. "We've been together 4 months, ever since he moved back. We're engaged." My heart didn't shatter, it calcified. She stood, rebuttoned her top without an ounce of shame. "You've always been spineless, Travis. I'm filing tomorrow. You won't get a cent." She smiled like she'd just won something. But something inside me clicked. I didn't yell, didn't beg. I wasn't going to grovel. They were going to pay, thoroughly, quietly, irrevocably. That same night, I parked in the shadowed corner of a Walmart lot, headlights off, a notebook open across my lap, thoughts on fire. Step 1, silence. No messages, no reaction. Step 2, find every weakness and tear them wide open. No meltdowns, no sorrow, just precision. I accessed every digital trail I still had permissions for. Shared clouds, old emails, our joint phone plan. She hadn't even bothered to update her passwords. Arrogant. There it was. An overflowing trash heap of betrayal. Texts between them, disgusting and cruel. Alyssa mocking me, calling me bland, placeholder. Damien sent her selfies, room bookings, dinner bills on our joint credit card, plans for the future, dividing what was still legally mine. I archived it all, organized it, stamped every timestamp. I titled it the Wake Up Folder. I wasn't building a defense. I was planning their erasure. 7 days later, the divorce paperwork hit my doorstep. She wanted it all, the house, the SUV, even the dog I'd raised since he could fit in my palm. I didn't say a word, not yet. Instead, I brought in a specialist, a financial investigator with a background in cybersecurity and asset recovery. In under a week, we had it. Alyssa had been siphoning funds into a hidden account under Damien's name. Tens of thousands gone. She'd even charged private vacations to her company and funneled internal HR files to Damien's new venture. Her job, human resources, the irony was suffocating. I sent an anonymous package to her employer. No sender info, just raw evidence, screenshots, emails, calendar logs, data tagged with full metadata. By sunrise, she was suspended pending review. Now for Damien. Mr. Self-Starter. A few online threads later, I dug up a sealed juvenile record. Fraud and wire theft when he was 19. He never disclosed it, especially not when he applied for a federal business loan 3 months ago. I tipped off the lender. Loan application, pulled, federal inquiry, opened. Still hadn't even set foot in court. 3 weeks on, I arrived in court in a simple navy suit. Nothing flashy, just composed, ready, with my lawyer holding the binder. Alyssa sat across from me, perfect on the outside, glossy hair, expensive jewelry, gripping Damien's hand like it was a trophy. They thought I'd be defeated, humiliated, willing to surrender. I was there to watch them unravel. My attorney, Edgar Blackwell, sharp as a scalpel, stood and addressed the court. He handed over our evidence, Exhibit A, sustained deception and misuse of financial assets. Inside, credit card statements signed by Alyssa, IP logs showing abuse of company systems, forwarded confidential documents, the fatal blow, doorbell camera footage. Damien walking out shirtless the same morning Alyssa claimed to be pulling overtime. You could have heard a pin drop. Even the judge paused his pen mid-stroke. Her lawyer stumbled, argued it was emotional fallout, accused me of being petty, called it an invasion. The judge raised his hand. Ms. Holloway, he said, using her maiden name now, care to explain these work-hour emails from your company address addressed to Mr. Lake with non-professional content? Alyssa froze. Her jaw tightened. Damien leaned in to whisper. She turned and smacked his arm. The first visible crack. The verdict was swift. I retained ownership of the house. And the vehicle. And yes, the dog. I'd submitted a screenshot where she mocked him as Travis's little therapy mutt. She was ordered to return half the missing funds. Her employer initiated dismissal procedures. As for Damien, he now faced federal scrutiny for hiding a criminal history during a loan application. No, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't break down. I didn't ask why. I simply watched as they both collapsed, piece by calculated piece, in perfect silence. He had 3 days to respond before the official charges advanced. When we walked outside, Alyssa seemed to collapse inward. Damien tried to take her hand, but she pulled away. I kept quiet, just watched. It wasn't revenge. It was justice stirring from a long sleep. Back at the house, things felt altered, not fixed, not better, just more still. I settled into a pattern. Morning runs circling the lake, evenings spent helping Coach Phil with the youth baseball team, kids who needed steadiness, not lectures. On weekends, I tackled the shed project, slowly turning it into a basic studio. Beneath the surface of that calm, I was still waiting for the last consequences to unfold. 2 months after the court date, Damien disappeared. A message popped up from Jenna, a high school friend I hadn't heard from in years. Hey, did you hear? Damien ghosted. Left Alyssa right in the middle of moving day. Rumor had it he'd taken off, maybe to Arizona. I didn't reply. Just opened Alyssa's Facebook page. The relationship status was gone. The engagement photos had vanished. Only a few blurry brunch pics remained with vague captions like, "Finding peace in the chaos." But the chaos had already found her. Her company's HR issued a public statement. Alyssa Holloway was permanently barred from holding any compliance role within the organization or any of its partners. And Damien? His business credentials were revoked. Financial regulators had flagged his name. No breadcrumb trail led back to me. That was by design. About a week after it all came crashing down, I got an email from Alyssa. Subject line, just talk. I know I was awful. I know I hurt you. But Travis, what we had meant something, didn't it? Before everything went wrong, I just want to talk. I stared at the message for a long time, then marked it as read and closed my laptop. Sometimes silence is the clearest response. Weeks passed. Then one Saturday night, I found myself at a rooftop bar in Boise. I'd never gone there alone before, but a mutual friend had invited me, so I thought I'd make an appearance for 20 minutes. I stayed longer because of her. Charlotte, sharp, effortlessly charming. She asked what I did, and I told her I worked in logistics for a regional delivery service. Not flashy, just honest work. She leaned in. Wait, were you ever married to Alyssa Holloway? I paused. She chuckled. You're that Travis? The quiet one who left her in ruins? I blinked, unsure how to respond. Honestly, she said with a grin, sipping her wine, kind of iconic. And for the first time in a long while, I smiled. Not because of what I'd dismantled, but because I was no longer the man she had broken. I had become the man who rebuilt. For Alyssa, though, the silence had turned into a cage. 3 months after the trial, her job was gone, Damien had abandoned her, and she was renting a tiny apartment above a vape shop on Franklin. I didn't need to go looking for updates. Boise may act big, but it's small when someone falls from grace. Charlotte and I weren't official, but we kept seeing each other. She had a gift for asking about the past without dredging up drama. One evening, over tacos and soft background jazz, she asked, "Do you ever miss her?" I shook my head before she could finish. I missed the person I thought she was. Meanwhile, Alyssa kept trying to reach out. Not with desperation, more like probing for cracks, throwing lines to see if anything would catch. "Hey, saw you featured in that blog. Small business spotlight. You? Walked past your old place. New curtains? Looks good. Do you still have Duke's vet records? My new landlord's asking." There was no mention of Damien, no apology. Just flat transactional notes, like we were co-workers reconnecting on LinkedIn. I never answered. But one message stood out. Subject, "You win. Damien's gone. Left me with his mess and a trashed reputation. Congrats. You win. Feel better now?" I stared at the screen for 5 full minutes. I didn't feel better, because revenge doesn't come with a rush of victory. It brings clarity. You stop needing an ending. You stop rehearsing the perfect response for when they finally apologize. You just keep moving. And I did. I launched a logistics business of my own, just me and 2 vans to start. But I knew the landscape, treated my drivers like teammates. Charlotte helped craft the brand. 3 months in, we broke even. At 6 months, we landed our first regional deal. While Alyssa faced eviction warnings and unanswered job applications, my world widened, quietly, steadily, without spectacle. One day, I was invited to speak on a startup panel. I nearly declined, but ended up going. That night changed everything. The room held maybe 50 people, students, a few investors, a couple of reporters. I spoke plainly, no pitch, just the truth about starting over from nothing. Afterward, a woman in her 60s walked up to me, firm handshake, kind eyes. "Your story reminds me of my nephew," she said. "His fiancée ran off with her boss. Now he heads a thriving architecture firm in Portland." I gave a polite smile. "People love a comeback," she said. "They just forget what gets buried beneath it." I nodded. "Sometimes it's the hurt that lays the groundwork." She paused, then handed me a business card. It was from a regional investment fund looking to back logistics startups. 3 months later, I had a proper office, a fleet, a long-term contract, a second chance. Alyssa, however, didn't go quietly. She filed to reopen the divorce case, citing emotional manipulation, psychological pressure, claimed I orchestrated her ruin behind the scenes. But our case was airtight. My lawyer shut it down in less than 2 days. The judge didn't even call a hearing, just issued one sentence. "This court will not permit narrative to replace fact." And just like that, it was over. Half a year passed with no word from her. Then, one evening while I was walking Duke near the lake, my phone buzzed. It wasn't a message. It was a photo. Charlotte and me, outside a bookstore, candid shot, taken from afar. Below it, just 4 words. "You look happy, finally." That was the last thing she ever sent. I didn't reply. Some ghosts aren't buried. They're just left behind. Half a year drifted by, pulling the remnants out with the tide. Charlotte and I had made things official. Nothing dramatic, no declarations, just slow mornings, shared playlists, lazy Sundays with pancakes and awful TV. It was a quiet kind of peace, the kind I hadn't known I needed. One night as we sat in the living room, Charlotte glanced around and asked, "Is it strange living here after all that?" My gaze drifted across the room. The fireplace Alyssa had once fought tooth and nail to have installed. The kitchen island, its surface worn and pitted from years of shared meals and arguments. That shadowed corner where I accidentally overheard words that broke something deep inside me. And yet, as I stood there, the realization hit. I felt absolutely nothing. No grief, no rage, just stillness. That sense of detachment made the decision easy. Within days, I put the house on the market. Alyssa had waged war over that place during the divorce. She used to call it her refuge, her dream made real. But in the final split, it was left in my name, while she moved out with nothing but her pride. Still, it held no meaning for me anymore. I didn't sell it out of spite or sorrow. It was serenity that drove me. A young couple, expecting their first child, offered over the asking price. Watching them wander through the space, hands clasped, eyes lit with dreams, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't even known I was searching for. Charlotte and I moved into a modest condo by the river, smaller, quieter, a clean slate untouched by old ghosts. But life always has its way of looping back. One afternoon, after a strategy session at the logistics center, I spotted her, Alyssa, hovering near the vending machines. Her eyes hadn't changed. Her expression was composed as always. But her posture, there was something hollow there, like she'd forgotten how to carry her own weight. "Travis," she said, barely above a whisper. I paused, gave her a nod. No words. "I read the article in the Tribune about your company. Impressive growth." I offered a courteous thank you. That was all. She hesitated. "I've been struggling. Took a temp job sorting mail at a legal office. Not what I trained for, but it pays the bills." I nodded again, wordless. Then her voice cracked. "How did you move on? How did you not let the resentment consume you?" I met her eyes, calm and unwavering. "You weren't the storm, Alyssa. You were the warning bell. And eventually, I listened." Her eyes shimmered with tears, but I didn't wait to see them fall. I turned and walked back into the building. She didn't follow. That night I told Charlotte what had happened. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. "I thought I'd feel angry," I admitted, but all I felt was nothing. She reached out and gently held my hand. "That's because you've already built something stronger than bitterness." Time moved on. The company flourished. We opened 2 more branches, hired 40 new employees. I was invited to sit on the board of a mentorship program for at-risk youth. The irony didn't escape me. I used to be the guy unraveling in a parking lot, wrecked by betrayal, staring through a cracked windshield. And now, I was being asked to guide others toward building their futures. At a local business awards event, I gave a short, unscripted speech. "Rock bottom doesn't always mean the end," I said. "Sometimes it's just the start. Betrayal can destroy you, but it can also illuminate your next step. Rebuild slowly, one piece at a time." There was silence. Then applause. As I stepped off the stage, adrenaline still in my veins, Charlotte greeted me with a soft smile. She leaned in close and whispered, "She wasn't your finale, Travis." Just a comma. A week later, an unmarked envelope arrived on my desk. No return address. Inside was a small note, folded neatly. "I saw your speech. You were right. I never knew what I had. Now I never will." I dropped it in the trash. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone back in. It means loosening the grip they once had on your life. Peace doesn't arrive with fanfare. There's no music swelling, no cinematic scene. It sneaks in quietly on an ordinary morning when you realize you haven't thought about them in a long time. For me, it happened at a gas station. I was filling up the company van. The sun was out. Some college kid next to me was struggling with the air pump. I leaned against the hood, sipping terrible coffee, and it hit me. I hadn't dreamed about Alyssa in months. No more endless replays of that awful day. No more waking up to her echo. The space inside me that once held betrayal was finally vacant, and I was okay. Not because someone patched me up, but because I rebuilt myself. Charlotte and I never tried to save each other. That was the beauty of it. We simply showed up, steadily, gently, week after week. We built trust the way you build a cabin, deliberately, board by board. She never demanded explanations about the past, but she honored it. She didn't flinch at the scars, and that's how I knew it was real. One brisk fall evening, as we walked along the river path with Duke trotting ahead, I asked her, "Think you'd want to stick around for the long haul?" She grinned. "Took you long enough." There was no ring, no deadline, just a promise, and sometimes that's more than enough. But before I close the book on this, let me say something honest. Revenge won't heal you. It won't erase the betrayal. It won't make it poetic. But if you do the work, stay grounded, speak little, and let your progress make the statement, you'll get something far better. You'll get yourself back. And that's the one thing they never thought they'd lose. As for Alyssa, she left Boise. Word is she's in Colorado now, part-timing at a real estate office. Her name doesn't really come up anymore. People don't ask about us. But sometimes, I hear whispers about the guy who never said much, just quietly let his life speak. I've become a kind of story, an ex who turned the tide. But that's not the legacy I chased. My real victory was in creating a life she could no longer access. Just last week, another envelope landed on my desk. No sender, no message, just an old photo of us long ago folded down the center. One word written on the back: regret. I looked at it under the kitchen light for a second, then I fed it through the shredder. Because regret is a prison, and I stopped serving that sentence long ago. That's where this story ends. If it resonated with you, feel free to share your thoughts below. And if this one meant something, there are more waiting on this channel. Until next time.